UK rivers are some of the sickest throughout Europe, consistently ranking as one of the worst countries for water quality. This is thanks to a toxic cocktail of chemicals, waste and sewage. That's right, water companies are pumping raw sewage into our waterways. For 2.4 million hours in 2022, raw sewage was entering our rivers and our seas. This includes human excrement, sanitary towels, condoms, wet wipes, chemicals and whatever else we put down the toilet. I'm going to do my best to explain what's happening so we all can understand. I'm going to be looking at who's at fault, and really we're going to be looking at why this is happening and really what can and should be done about it. And I've come to the River Warf here in the north of England, which has been listed as one of our most polluted rivers, to see what I can find. Just taking extra care to make sure that I don't slip here, because who wants to fall into poopy water? I mean, all of this here just looks so like muddy and like grimy and slippery, and it stinks. What we're looking at here is abnormal algal and bacterial growth. Naturally, our freshwater rivers flow over clean gravels, but due to increased pollutants from sewage or agricultural runoff, this slimy growth takes over. It chokes the river, starving it of light and oxygen. Graylings have declined massively on this river. They have small livers, so are very susceptible to pollution. This section of the wharf has been, in the past, a designated public swimming area. If you go online, you can find all the information on this and plenty of articles and photos of people swimming here. But thankfully today, this has now changed, as the water quality here is classified as poor and swimming is not advised. Because just up here is a sewage discharge point. This is a point where raw sewage spills out into the river. And despite there being signs saying not to swim, I think there are some men from the local fire service here who are training in preparation to save anyone who decides they do want to go for a swim. But you might just need more than a fireman to save you after swimming in this. As you know from watching my videos, you know that I like to immerse myself in nature, but probably unsurprisingly for this video, it's not something that I'm willing to do. Any underwater footage that you're seeing has come courtesy of Mark from Beneath British Waters. Mark unfortunately couldn't make it on the video today, but he did provide me with a lot of local knowledge, told me where to go, and he supplied me with some footage, so do go and check out his work. I'll link it in the description. There's a pumpkin there. At least it's not poo. Still a pumpkin though. So in England, our household waste and our rainwater all flow into the same pipes. Now this is a problem because in periods of high rainfall, the infrastructure, the pipes, they just can't cope. And you know, these pipes, they're heading to water treatment sites. There's one behind me right here. And here, this is where the sewage should be properly treated before it is discharged. But in periods of high rainfall, the water companies are allowed to overflow and spill out this rainwater and sewage into our rivers. And here's the point where this happens. Which I know sounds kind of crazy, right? So I guess you would think this is an infrastructure problem, right? Well, not entirely. Common sense tells you that if we divided these two pipes, rainwater and sewage, that this problem simply wouldn't occur. So why aren't we seeing this happen? Well, we're not seeing this happen because there is a lack of money. There is a lack of investment into this infrastructure. And why is there a lack of money? Well, this is where things get interesting. Back in 1989, the water industry in England was privatised so that we would have the proper investment to see its development into the future and to take the burden off public borrowing. 30 years later, there has been absolutely no investment from water companies, and the UK's water and sewage networks are failing. Why could this be? Are the water companies not making enough money? Since the privatisation of the water industry, £72 billion has been paid out in dividends. That's £72 billion that has been going in the pockets of those who run and those who own the water companies. None of that has been put back into improving and maintaining the industry. And many of those who sit at the top of the water companies, they are on huge annual salaries. And many of the investors and those who own the water companies, live overseas, and you know, what do they want to see on their investments? They want to see money, and they are, but it's coming at the cost of our health. It's coming at the cost of the health of the landscape. While those at the top are only getting richer, their companies and the infrastructure around them and the environment around them is falling apart. It's not being looked after. So not only is the whole industry inadequate by design, it is falling apart. There's so many problems with it. Yorkshire Water leaks, now this is every single day, 2.1 million litres of water. And across all of the water companies, a total of 3 billion litres of water is leaked every single day. And the other criminal thing that's going on is that the water companies are allowing raw sewage out into the rivers when it hasn't rained, when there isn't this overflow on the systems. This is a criminal activity, and they're doing this because for them, it's cheaper for them to do this. They get a fine, which is essentially just a slap on the wrists. And this is a lot less money compared to what it would be to improve and invest and actually deal with the problem at hand. And if those at the top and the bosses of the water companies are making so much money, surely business must be booming, right? Well, when the industry was privatised, it was debt-free, and now, 30 years later, they're in £60 billion worth of debt. There are a few water companies which are close to going bust. It's Thames Water which is facing the worst of this, and their new project to build the new Thames tidal wave. It's that massive tunnel which they're building to alleviate a lot of the pressure on London sewers, which it should do, but it's being paid for by their customers. Privatisation was meant to take the burden off of the public, but now it's very messily being shifted back upon us because the water companies aren't investing and they're just concerned with looking after themselves. And you know what? I could go on. There seems to be no end to the problems and the corruption which is surrounding an industry which really should be a basic requirement of modern day civilization. Quite frankly, it's embarrassing that this is happening, that we are pumping our own shit into our rivers, into the places which really should be our most biodiverse habitats. Now, what can be done about this huge mess? I think, in essence, the industry has to be renationalised. The second you privatise something, it simply becomes about money. It's not working, it hasn't worked, there must be a change. I think the Environment Agency, I think the government need to step up and punish the people who are committing these criminal offences and just get a bloody good framework in place that is just going to look after our fresh water rivers. You know, I really don't like having to make these kinds of videos, having to come out into nature, if you can call it that, and stand by stinky sewers. But you know what, I'm realising that as Leave Curious is growing, these are the kinds of videos which I really should be making, because it threatens everything which I care about, and it threatens everything which we care about, which is the natural world. So it's going to be a rather smelly goodbye, but thanks for watching. Leave Curious.